Welcome to Endzone Strategy. On today's podcast, we will be sending out our Week 5 picks and explaining some of our main strategies. Stay tuned to try to win some money for your fantasy football team. One of our favorite strategies here at Endzone Strategy is mixing. Mixing requires you take two players that feed off each other, and as one goes up, the other goes up. Usually, this is a relationship between a quarterback and a running back, or a quarterback and a wide receiver. This week, we have two great matchups for mixing. The first matchup is the Patriots against the Cowboys. Tom Brady has been the best fantasy performer at the quarterback position this year. He has stayed steady around that 25-point mark, and that type of production does not come at a low price. His consistency and overall potential to put up loads of points makes him the most valuable fantasy quarterback this week. As he goes, so does Dion Lewis. Last game, Lewis started hot, but the blowout led to LeGarrette Blount getting a lot of touches late. I think the Cowboys game will be closer than the Jaguars game, and Lewis has been too effective to see a decrease in his role. He will get targets in the passing game and the occasional carry. I like Lewis again this week. Julian Edelman is a no-doubt pick almost every week in DFS. The guy gets over 15 targets per game. He is Tom Brady's safety blanket, which alone makes him valuable. Here's why I think this is a good week for Edelman and Lewis. They both are yards after the catch threats. With Greg Hardy returning to the Dallas line with fresh legs, I expect Brady to be under pressure, which will increase the short targets to both Edelman and Lewis. Now, what else is there to say about Gronk? The dude is an animal. He puts up fantasy points like it's his job. He gets 3+ targets per game in the end zone, which is ridiculous. And his 25 points per game at his price is insane. He is the best tight end in the NFL, and he is never a bad fantasy play. The other matchup to exploit this week are the Falcons at home against the Redskins. Last week, Matt Ryan played in a blowout, and that brought his numbers down. The emergence of Devontae Freeman as a stud running back actually helps Ryan quite a bit. Now that the Falcons are a legitimate threat to run the ball for the first time in years, it opens up the field for Ryan against a mediocre Redskins defense. The past 2 weeks, I was completely right about the emergence of Devontae Freeman. His effectiveness leaves me little doubt that the return of Tevin Coleman will affect his point totals. Freeman last week did most of his damage receiving, which is really important in a PPR league. His price keeps going up, and the Redskins' defense have been the best in the league against the run. Although I don't feel like this affects Freeman because they face the Dolphins, Giants, Rams, and Eagles, all not the most effective running teams. I don't think this week is the right time to fade him, but that time could be coming soon. Like Ryan, Julio Jones' effectiveness last week was cut short by the Falcons' thrashing of the Texans. Jones has been dominant in the other 3 games this season, and I'm not going to let Week 4 deter me from picking him, as he gets a lot of targets and has ridiculous big play potential. Hankerson is Ryan's second or third favorite passing option behind Julio and Freeman. Usually Jones will be double-teamed, and Hankerson is the guy who will get the targets. The Falcons' offense is dynamic, and his 7 targets per game make him a value pick at the $4,000 range. Proceed with caution, however, because he is probably going to be heavily played in Week 5 after a huge Week 4. Most people look at Mariota's matchup and will try to stay away. The fact of the matter is that he averages 20+ points per week, and more importantly than that, the Bills allow 20+ points per week to opposing quarterbacks. This could be skewed by going against some of the top passing threats such as Luck, Brady, and Tannehill, but I don't think so. I like Mariota's potential output for his relatively low cost. Le'Veon Bell is undoubtedly a fantasy football stud. He has an extreme effectiveness in both the passing and rushing games. With Roethlisberger out, Vic will continue to hand the ball off to Bell, which could once again lead to some high point totals. I also like the fact that Vic will try to complete short passes to try to get going in the passing game. Bell is also a consistent target on those. Jamaal Charles is the NFL's career yards per carry leader. He is also the NFL's biggest big play threat at the running back position. He dominates the game for the Chiefs as he does it in both the passing and running games. Charles is pretty much a lock for over 20 points every single week. This rookie dominated for a Rams team that has been waiting a while to have a dominant running back. Last week, Gurley put up well over 100 yards, and I don't expect the Rams to stop giving it to him. He is high upside and is a low price option again this week. Danny Woodhead is my low-price sleeper option this week. The Steelers have struggled against receiving backs. Woodhead gets a lot of targets out of the backfield and the occasional goal line carry. He is a huge value for fantasy owners in a PPR league, and I think Woodhead goes for over 15 this week. My other value pick at the running back position is Darren Sproles. Sproles faces off with his former team, the New Orleans Saints, this week, which always adds a little motivation. DeMarco Murray has been whining about his amount of carries, and it could affect his playing time this week. In the weeks when Murray didn't play, Sproles put up huge point totals. He is effective in the return, pass, and rushing games. AJ Green has been piling on the yards in recent weeks. He is a major big play threat, but his 8.5 targets per week scares me in a PPR league. I think for his price, he is a solid option as one of the league's best receivers and Dalton's favorite targets. But his lack of overall targets leaves something to be desired. Fitz's rejuvenation has been one of the biggest stories for fantasy owners this year. The guy catches everything thrown his way, and his 10 targets per game makes him a threat to put up points in a hurry. Where he makes his biggest impact is in the red zone, where he is a big target who reels in touchdown passes consistently. DeAndre Hopkins, like Julian Edelman, is a guy who gets 15 targets per game. His value is really high as his price and output are similar to Edelman's. He doesn't have the same guy throwing the ball, which will obviously make an impact regarding his overall consistency. But his usage and value this week will be high, as I expect the Texans to be losing against the Colts and be airing it out. Jeremy Maclin has put up huge numbers in weeks 3 and 4, and I don't expect that to change much. He is a big play threat who is targeted around 10 times per game. I like his price and value again this week as Alex Smith's top target. This week's first value pick is Kamar Aiken. The Ravens' receiving corps has been decimated by injuries, and Aiken is the only starter remaining. Another thing to watch with him is Joe Hayden is still listed as questionable for the Browns. This could be huge for Aiken's value this week. This week's second value pick at wide receiver is Cole Beasley. So far, Brandon Weeden has done most of his damage with the short pass. His completion percentage is pretty high, and I like Cole Beasley's play this week. He gets around 4 to 8 targets a game and around 30 to 80 yards. Don't expect a monster showing from him, but if he puts up a solid score, his value for his price could be an important play in Week 4. The Chiefs are the worst pass defense in the league. They have allowed huge games to quarterback and wide receivers over the past few weeks. Now this week they face the Bears, who have been disappointing to this point. However, Bennett has been decent and is obviously Jay Cutler's favorite target with Alshon Jeffrey still hurt. I completely expect the Bears to be down early, which will make them pass the ball. I expect a huge week from Bennett. Charles Clay was our sleeper pick last week, and for a good reason. He is a big play threat at the tight end position for a team that has been hit hard by the injury bug. I think this week he has a solid week again. Maybe not the 23 points he put up in Week 4, but nonetheless, he is a valuable player at his current price. As far as defense is concerned, it's all about preferences and your remaining funds. I like the Giants matchup against the 49ers, as Colin Kaepernick has been absolutely dreadful the last 2 weeks, and they've allowed around 20 fantasy points to their opposing defense. The Giants aren't the defense that the Packers and the Cardinals are, but nonetheless, I like that play as it is an 8 o'clock game on a Sunday and gives you an actual reason to watch it. Thank you for watching this week's podcast. Please subscribe and visit our website at www.endzonestrategy.com to view more strategies and more lineups.